Hello my dear friends, how is it going? I hope I find you all in good health and safe and sound. I'm Ari Thurger and today I'm going to briefly answer the question if the black sun symbol is a pagan symbol or not. Usually referred to as a Viking symbol, and I can tell you right now that it is not and never was related to Scandinavians, neither of the Iron Age nor of the so-called Viking period and the Scandinavian Middle Ages. But this time, let's try to understand if there's any pagan background to it. At the very least, a really brief approach, because in the past I have already made a video about the black sun symbol and the historical truth of it. But in that video I start with a long rant which I thought at the time, and I still think actually it's relevant, because this isn't just a question of solely addressing this symbol, but also its modern implications and its uses in extreme spectrums of politics. But this video today isn't without a little rant, because, and I'm sorry to those who come here for the first time and may think I'm being arrogant, but it's just, I get tired of 30 and 40-year-old adolescents who refuse to get out of their cocoon of fanaticism and bigotry. So, I have noticed that since I've made that previous video on this symbol, the black sun symbol, no matter how many sources I place in the bibliography and no matter the historical truth, there's always someone that simply refuses to believe because they want to keep using this symbol to express their bigotry and radical politics of hatred and intolerance, or because they have tattooed the symbol, because it does look aesthetically appealing, and at the time they didn't know its actual significance or meaning, and so such people are obviously ashamed and regret their choices. Hopefully that's the case, but don't want to admit it, so they have called me Jewish. I think this is a moment of learning. No, I am not Jewish, and no, I'm not in some sort of agenda against white people, as some of you have stated. You see, when people call others Jews as a way to show that what is being told is either a lie, an agenda, or unreliable content, that's a big red flag right there from the part of people who say such things. Not only it demonstrates ignorance, but also it demonstrates their lack of arguments, and so they call people Jewish as if Jewish or Jew is synonymous with unreliable. That's just pathetic and extremely ignorant and rude. If your only argument is calling people Jew to express inaccuracy and dishonesty, no one will take you seriously, because the only thing you demonstrate is that you are a foolish anti-Semitic buffoon. I mean, what the hell is wrong with you? Seriously. By the way, I take the opportunity to say that I've also made a video concerning the common misconceptions concerning the runes. In that video, I've also talked a little bit about the black sun symbol, because it is also a common mistake, a very common mistake actually, to believe it had any connection with the runes. It never did. But on the thumbnail of that video, I've placed the symbol, the black sun symbol, on purpose to catch your attention. I speak about it in the video. Although some people don't even bother watching it and immediately express their opinions without even watching the content, and even called me a neo-Nazi for having the symbol in the thumbnail. Not sure if some of you are familiar with the phrase, "Don't judge a book by its cover." That isn't applied only to actual books, you know. So, to some people I'm either Jewish or a neo-Nazi when they don't agree with something for which I always support with sources. Funny thing is that I'm neither. Please, get your fecal matter together. Thank you if you have reached this far in the video. Now, with no more delay, let's get started, my dear friends. Please. Alright, I want to avoid repeating the things I've said on previous videos, so to facilitate the comprehension of what we are addressing here today, let's focus on the iconographic representation of this symbol, giving the benefit of the doubt that some people might actually be a little bit visually confused. The symbol on the screen, somewhere here on the screen, is the black sun symbol, a Nazi symbol influenced by Merovingian sun wheels but modified. Indeed, visually this symbol is similar to the Merovingian sun wheels, as both originated from solar symbolisms, such as the example of the swastika. Therefore, Merovingian sun wheels are actually symbols representing the sun. Some even contain the swastika symbol in the middle, in the center, being also a solar symbol before the Nazis also appropriated that symbol. However, they are different. So please, let's pay attention to the examples here. We have a solar wheel with a swastika inside, a Merovingian disc, or in other words, a disc of Merovingian artistic style, and then we have the black sun, a creation of the Nazis. I must point out two important things. That first, the term black sun is a creation of the Nazis, schwarze Sonne. We do not know what the Merovingian solar discs were called. So the term black sun, schwarze Sonne, applied to the symbol is a term coined by the Nazis. And they didn't call black sun to the Merovingian discs. They called black sun the symbol they have created. And it is also important to say that even though the Merovingian dynasty was largely Christian, since the second king of the dynasty, Clovis I, was precisely the king of the Franks who converted to Christianity, this artistic style is already somewhat revealed in more remote times during the Bronze Age. In archaeology, they are referred to as Zierscheibe, ornamental disc, as metal jewelry dating back to the European Iron Age. They are found in women's graves, and they have probably been used as pendants or amulets or to fasten belts or tunics. The earliest examples date back to the late Bronze Age, circa 800 before the Common Era in Italy, but we shall get to that. These have developed into the Merovingian discs, which later on, much later, in the 20th century, these iconographic artistic styles were appropriated by the Nazis and turned into the so-called black sun symbol, as a symbol of Nazi occultism. It is also important that you can visually notice that the Bronze Age ornamental discs have less than 7 branches or rays as representations of the sun's rays. Normally the maximum number is 7, and that the Merovingian sun wheels or discs have at most 9 branches. Let's say it's an Odinic number based on the Old Norse Germanic paganism, as it is a number not normally related to solar motifs, but an equally important number in magical religious terms, normally associated with deities of death, ecstasy, the mysteries of the afterlife, and chthonic deities of the underworld, of fertility, etc. And I say here that the number 9 is an Odinic number only because in Germanic Nordic paganism it will be later on at the end of the Scandinavian Iron Age and the Middle Ages that Odin will be associated with this number countless times, the number 9, especially in medieval Icelandic literature. But this is not to say that continental Germanic Bronze Age discs or Merovingian discs were associated with Odin, but rather were associated with the number 9 as a number related to the afterlife and deities of the underworld or of the earth or fertility deities. And now please notice the black sun that has 12 branches or rays, a mystical number more adapted to the Christian esotericism of Nazism and not in relation to paganism. This detail is super important and makes all the difference. The number 12 is a number of Christian esotericism, and the great focus of Nazi occultism is precisely on the fantastic, esoteric, and on the spiritual of Christian morality, religious teachings, and mythology. This symbol is a 20th century Nazi reinvention of the sun wheel. In fact, I must add that the 12 rays, or branches, in here represent a common religious philosophical belief of the representation of the pantheon of 12 gods, not pagan gods, but either as the sons of the Judeo-Christian God or the 12 aspects of the same God, or even the 12 original disciples or apostles whom Jesus met in Galilee, and the 12 knights of the Holy Grail, the 12 tribes of Israel, all those magical symbolisms of a Judeo-Christian background. This is simply a religious philosophy based on Judeo-Christian teachings. The only pagan motif that here that you can see are the physical representations of Bronze Age and Iron Age solar discs I've shown you previously. And as I've shown you, there are clear iconographic differences that makes it easy to identify which one is the Black Sun of the Nazis. In fact, another important detail in the images of the Black Sun by the Nazis, the center is occupied by a dark or filled globe, which has a far better relation to the Black Sun's own mystic mythology or mythological aspects. While the ancient Germanic solar wheels do not have a filled center, right? Because those discs, they symbolize the sun itself, only the sun, since the concept of the Black Sun did not exist in the European paganism of the Bronze Age and the Iron Age. Again, to really get the visual perception of the Nazi symbol, it contains 12 ramifications or solar rays, Christian esotericism. It is called Black Sun, Schwarze Sonne, and it has a dark globe at the center or a black filled circumference. Easy to identify. So, there really was a Germanic symbol. Sorry, actually, the early ones appear in Western Italic Peninsula as solar representations in women's jewelry from the late Bronze Age, circa 800 or before the Common Era. And it certainly continued to be an artistic style during the Iron Age of the Merovingian period, or the Migration period. But the Merovingian period, let's focus on that, between the 5th and the 8th century of the Common Era. Going further north into Central Europe, and it's actually in Christian context that the more elaborate discs are found that come closer visually to the Nazi Black Sun. And these early iconographic representations in jewelry were reinterpreted and modified by Nazi period German occultism, giving rise to the Black Sun that we see here. If people really want to use a similar symbol but with pagan origins, then this is not the correct symbol, because this is a Nazi occult symbol created in 1934 by SS members of Heinrich Himmler, that was not only modified to look like this, but was also reinterpreted, therefore not having a magical religious pagan content, but rather interpreted and modified to fit Christian esotericism, which is the basis of Nazi occultism. Mind you that we really don't know much concerning the discs as pieces of jewelry from the Migration period and the Merovingian period. The archaeological evidences aren't many, and there hasn't been a thorough work of investigation, not yet. So there's a lot of speculations concerning the meaning of such solar motifs. No scientific hypothesis has been established yet. The likely scenario is that they were representations of the sun. No doubt pieces of jewelry, such as amulets and fibulas, and probably also brooches, used by people with high social status. Mostly women, but I would say probably also in relation to a warrior elite, and certainly in Christian context of the Merovingian dynasty, used by wealthy members of nobility and the clergy. As I said, the number of rays vary between 7, 8, 9 rays, very rarely 10. The most common number of rays is indeed 9, therefore the idea that it was connected to Odin. But we have no evidences for that. It's just that in Scandinavia and in Iceland, later on, the number 9 will come to be associated with Odin in the very late Iron Age and the Middle Ages. But the number 9 appears in several sources of Nordic medieval literature concerning fertility chthonic entities, usually female or effeminate. So there's actually a pagan feminine fertility motif usually associated with the number 9, which would explain why the earliest ornamental discs were found in women's graves. But then again, the earliest findings are out of Germanic context, so it really is only speculation. Perhaps the motif would be the rays of the sun as a heavenly power or a source of fertility. Maybe they aren't even sun rays but representations of thunder, and right there, it would be actually more fitting in a fertility religious context. But these are the ornamental discs I'm talking about of the Iron Age, not the black sun symbol of the Nazis, which is always represented with 12 rays. It is associated to esoteric Christian motifs and nothing to do with fertility pagan motifs or pagan solar motifs. And it is a Nazi symbol whether you like it or not. So, the black sun symbol isn't a pagan symbol. It wasn't even called black sun, the Merovingian discs. It is a modification and reinterpretation of migration period ornamented discs as pieces of jewelry by Nazi occultism of the 1930s. Also, and obviously, it isn't a Viking symbol either, as these discs were never found in Scandinavia and they do not date to the late Iron Age of Scandinavia, but the migration period of continental European contexts, Merovingian context. And the earliest similar discs ever found so far are from the late Bronze Age in Western Italic context. Even geographically speaking, the Merovingian discs have been found in the territory where it is now modern France. At most, it is a Frankish symbol, probably derived from Bronze Age artistic styles of Western Italic Peninsula, Italy. I cannot stress enough that the black sun symbol is a creation by German occultists linked to Nazism, and it is the product of a political religious project focused on Christian esotericism and on 19th century romanticisms and politics of a racial character without any scientific basis. The black sun symbol is based on the idea of the existences of two suns, the one we actually have and another one that is hidden, an occult sun, a black sun, which is the metaphorical sun of revelation, which only very few initiated into the cult would benefit from the hidden knowledge of this occult sun, and therefore they would spread that knowledge into the world, which is an idea rooted in the politics of Nazism and the expansion of such politics by military means and subjugating the world to this political order by means of invasion, colonization, genocide, and oppression. The very concept, the very conception of the black sun and the hidden knowledge obtained by the initiated into the cult reflects the Nazi objective of conquering the world and establish this political order globally. And so the black sun was created as the central motif that expresses this wish, as well as the symbol at the very center of the physical space, the Vivesburg Castle, where SS esoteric cult took place. They gathered around the circle to perform their rituals to receive the illumination of the hidden sun, of the black sun. So, what we really have here is an appropriated and modified symbol to fit into the Nazi political religious ideologies of an esoteric character, which served as the representation of the Nazi machine of war that would lead to conquering the world and imposing the oppressive new order administered by the highest members of this cult. This symbol lies in the roots of the belief that the Nazi machine of war, united with esoteric knowledge, would force the beginning of a new era in the world, the era of enlightened humans of pure race, aiming to modify the entire social, political, economic, and religious structure of the world. So when you use this symbol, for whichever reasons, it doesn't matter. This is the information you are passing on and giving a very bad and wrong idea of paganism. This is not a pagan symbol. So, we have come to the end of this video, and I've seen this before, so I know some people will come here with all sorts of occultic and spiritual explanations so they can keep using this symbol. That's like when someone kills a child, and they can come up with all the explanations they want, and it may even sound very right and completely orthodox and justifiable in that person's head, but that doesn't change the fact that that person murdered a child. So, when you use this symbol, for whichever purposes, it doesn't change the fact that this is a Nazi symbol, and you are demonstrating ignorance, either because you are a neo-Nazi, or because you didn't actually know this, the meaning of this symbol, but perhaps you should have researched a little bit about it before using it or even tattooing it on your person, which equally shows ignorance if you simply use something without even knowing what it is. And giving the benefit of the doubt that you didn't know its meaning, you are still sending a disturbing message through this symbol, whether unwillingly or unknowingly. You can come up with all the occultic junk that you want, but seriously, you don't need to justify your hatred for people with politics or religion. Just admit that you are an asshole, and that's it. We all understand, because we all already know that when someone uses this symbol. And you may say this is woke stuff and these snowflakes, this and that. I mean, what moral do people have to call others snowflakes when they are the first ones to shit themselves every time an historical fact disrupts their self-delusional fantasy of an historical narrative that never existed to begin with? And no, they are not out there to get you. A person that is proud of using this symbol is not worth getting. You may say that I'm in some sort of an agenda, and indeed I am. My only objective is education. I want to be educated and obtain as much knowledge as possible. And I want to be able to share and exchange knowledge with you, with all of you. Education is a never-ending process, and I truly believe that only by being educated and in search for the truth can we possibly move forward and evolve as a society and as a species. Thank you so much for watching. See you on the next video. And as always, tack för idag. Thanks for today. Obrigado por hoje. Farewell, my dear friends.